Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Nick Padone, Chris McNeil, and honestly, Nick, we're just happy to have you.
Oh my gosh, guys. I did not think I was going to be sitting at Burke Lakefront Airport today at all. Man, crazy kind of flight issues. We've been talking about flight issues on this show probably the last 3 episodes now because your jacket got lost. My flight out of Florida got delayed last night probably 5 times, 6 times. I unlocked my door to go to bed last night, technically today, at 5 a.m. So I'm running about 3 hours of sleep.
Solid.
Florida is up on me right now, 1-0. But yeah, glad to be here. And then too, we have a fun show in store. We're talking about the OBRs, Noah Weisskopf. But it was cool, Gab. Before the show, George Niang dropped in here, kind of surprise guest, and was delivering us some energy drinks, which was cool.
Yeah, I've had this in the works for a couple of months, surprising you guys, and I ordered the Amazon delivery driver vest and everything, and it was really worth it to see your reactions.
Yeah,
full costume, wearing the vest, coming in, making a delivery, and then he delivered what I'd say the line of the day.
For sure, the line of the day.
Yes. Do you want to say it? We can roll it on the show,
yeah,
actually. I'll splice it and have Ryan put it into the show.
Beautiful.
To sign for this? Is that what she
Yeah.
This one? I need someone to sign for this. Oh, what's up, guys? How are you guys doing? I'm just dropping you guys off some energy.
Love the new pod.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you. George, nice to meet you. Oh, I'm gonna trip myself here.
Chris McNeil, nice to
Great to meet you.
We went.
She took me way out there. It was all right. No, it was all right. No, it was cool. I got to get my confidence up, work on my jump shot at a park. Nice. So Gab gets credit,
Wow, I nailed it on that Amazon
you
vest
did.
size.
This is gonna be my this is gonna be my job if I don't start making threes. To deliver an Amazon package.
Yeah. Great to see him, come in here. And yeah, he said that if he doesn't start making threes, he's going to be delivering for Amazon soon. So George, start making your threes, man. Cleveland's behind you. And you guys already know how we work here. At some point, we'll have George on the pod.
You never know who's going to stop by Burke Lakefront Airport.
You never know. It's like, what is that show? Is that like the intro to Pawn Stars? Is you never know who's going to come through those doors or what's going to come through those doors? Is there a kind of catchphrase? I guess we have the same thing going
us.
here.
The funny part is we do get a lot of Amazon drivers that come in and ask to be signed for things.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like that's out of the realm of possibility. Not to have a Cleveland Cavalier, though, do it. That is normally not
Yeah, well done.
I knew what I was doing, you guys. I knew what I was doing. And
Well
the funny thing is I had to tell McNeil about it because he drives in.
Yeah.
And even having told McNeil, I got to still surprise you
did.
because we hadn't talked about it in a minute. So I ended up getting you surprised.
Well, I'm glad that I made it. I'm glad that my plane mercifully decided to take off last night around 1:30 a.m. And it was a great surprise, Gab.
Good for you. I'm glad you're here. We're
Somehow.
gonna get our fill in the blank going. We're gonna chat Cavs. We're gonna chat a little bit of Browns. Actually, we've got our feature interview coming up for our Garage Beer featured interview. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
Alrighty, joining us now for our Garage Beer featured interview on the Big Play Cleveland show, the OBRs, Noah Weisskopf. What is going on, Noah? Glad to have you also back in town, back from covering the Combine out there in Indy. How was that, man?
It was good. It's a long week. It's late nights, early mornings, but you get once a year where everyone's in the same spot, so it was worth it, and you catch up on your sleep when you get home.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, glad to have everybody back in the great state of Ohio after some crazy travel for sure. Noah, everything that I feel like we heard out of the Combine this past week was really the opposite of hearing anything. It was how quiet things were and that people were kind of tight-lipped, which is unusual. The Combine usually a hotbed for where rumors and transactions kind of all start. Did you kind of get that sentiment too, that things were just a little bit more hush-hush this year in Indy?
100%. And I think that that's probably for a variety of reasons. I know that some guys have alluded to it, but I think that, a big reason that I had talked with a couple people about was that, the sports betting market, right? And, leaking stuff is a big deal now. And with the betting and potential landing spots and that kind of stuff, it's a dangerous game you're playing. And the NFL knows that. And, I would guess told many teams that that's a big deal. So that's probably, part of the reason. I think another reason is the salary cap went up and took that big jump. And I think honestly, teams are still trying to figure out, what they're going to do with that extra money. So, I think that everything's going to be a little delayed this year. I think that's a big reason as to why there wasn't too much going on around the combine, at least big conversations. You hear small stuff here and there, but nothing major. But there still were those conversations, going on between teams and agents and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, nothing crazy as has happened in previous years.
Now, Noah, before we get to the Browns and specifically what they were looking for there, I got to ask you, were you there for Xavier Worthy and his run in the 40-yard dash? 4.21 seconds. Unbelievable.
It was something to see on my phone. I actually left on Friday. Didn't stay for the Saturday stuff. However, I was lucky enough to be talking with Xavier Worthy at his press conference. I think that was on Thursday I think that was on Friday. He actually told us that John Ross's 4.22 record was in serious jeopardy. So pretty cool to see that come alive and also learn that he had a formal with the Browns. So I don't know if he's going to be there now at 54 after breaking the record, but there is interest there.
Now, when he said that to a room full of press, what was the reaction to the press when he said, "Hey, this record is in jeopardy at 4.22"?
Everyone kind of looked around. It was pretty cool to see everyone kind of look at each other and be like, did he just say that? So, I mean, it's even cooler to see him actually do it. He's a really talented player.
You guys, I hate to steal Worthy's moment, but I don't know. My mad dash back to security in the airport might have been right around. I don't know. Maybe one of us took down that record first.
All for a coat.
All for that coat that I never got.
You never
back.
got.
But Gab, here's the issue. That was the unofficial time. How they put those out.
I
And
would
then
just like to say I had the
time
unofficial
drops.
time in Cleveland Hopkins Airport, racing to make a flight with no jacket.
We will be putting the plaque up soon at Hopkins. Noah, you mentioned that he, also dropped in there that he had the formal meeting with the Browns. I believe Troy Franklin, another big time receiver out of this draft that had a formal meeting with the Browns. Who are some wide receivers that you think the Browns could realistically target when we start talking draft? Because it seems like they definitely have their eyes open on a couple of these faster guys.
Yeah, it's so hard to pinpoint a couple because of how deep this receiver class is. I mean, this is one of the deepest receiver classes we've probably ever seen come through Indy, go into the NFL draft.
Wow.
But, those three guys that I had mentioned, I think that are really interesting and intriguing if they were to make it to 54. And I think that if the Browns were in some world to trade up, I think it would probably be for one of those guys. I don't envision that happening. It's always, unpredictable to say that Andrew Berry is going to trade up. I know the one time he did it was for JOK, and that's obviously panned out pretty well for him. But, Xavier Worthy's a guy that now is probably not looking like he's going to be there at 54. However, before the 40 was probably going to be there. So he's a guy that might not be there. And Troy Franklin's a guy that probably won't be there. It's going to be pretty close. But, a guy that could be right around there who also told me that he had a formal with the Browns is Jermaine Burton from Alabama. He's a deep threat guy that really produced at Alabama and then Georgia before he transferred there. So he's a guy that you could potentially keep your eye on. But then there's a bunch of other guys behind those three that are going to be around there that, in a normal draft class without this much depth at receiver could be picked earlier than the second or third round.
So maybe they don't fall to the Browns. The Browns trade up?
I mean, I think that there's always that possibility, and Andrew Berry always hits us with the, we're not locked into anything. We're going to look to trade up. We're going to look to trade back. We're going to look to stay put. So I think that there's always that chance. And, a guy falling like JOK did, they realized that that was a talent that they had as a first-round talent, and they moved up to take him. So I don't think you can ever completely rule it out. However, I don't think you can ever say it's likely or anticipated that they'll do something like that.
For sure. How about my guy Roman Wilson? Anything there, or not yet?
I mean, not yet. It's hard to pinpoint.
Damn.
Michigan guys at the combine. There were so many of them. I mean,
Yeah.
every time that one of those guys ran a 40 or did one of the drills, especially on the Thursday or Friday, half the stadium stood up and cheered. So there was so much, Michigan support out there that, with all 18 guys. I know I saw Jim Harbaugh walking around with his dad. I mean, they were all, it was all Michigan people out there.
All right, last one for you before we go to break and kind of just keep the off-season chatter alive. A big hot topic, and I know you know this, throughout this offseason has been Nick Chubb and what's going to come of this contract renegotiation and what's going to come. Could he be a cap casualty? And we've kind of, I feel like it's kind of had peaks and valleys where the chatter is heated up and then it's gotten put down and then it's heated up again and then there's been water thrown on it again. Where are you at with that? Do you think that the Browns could probably bring in another RB, right, to kind of just plan for the future without Chubb and kind of pair with Jerome Ford?
Yeah, I think that they'll probably bring in another running back this offseason, regardless if that's through the draft, free agency. But I also think that, the reports that come out about Chubb, I don't think people talk about it enough that Andrew Berry himself said that they're keeping Nick Chubb. So, Andrew never says anything, basically, in these press conferences. And then the one time he's going to say something, and it's going to be that we're going to keep Nick Chubb and we're doing everything we can to keep Nick Chubb, I think that that's telling. I don't think that he's gonna, I can never say for anything in this media business for sure, and I don't ever want to do that because the NFL is a business after all, and who knows what can possibly happen. It's so unpredictable sometimes. But I think that one of the most given things in my eyes, at least, is that Nick Chubb is a Brown this upcoming season, and whether they figure that out, I think it could be a challenge to restructure that deal. I know that. There could be issues there with agreeing to something, but after all, I don't see any world in which he's not on the Browns.
Man, that's definitely good news to hear. We're chatting all things Browns offseason, NFL Combine with the OBRs, Noah Weisskopf. We are going to step aside, but when we return, we're keeping the convo alive with Noah. What are the Browns going to do with free agency? Maybe some receivers there too. Don't go anywhere. More of the Big Play Cleveland show right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz, and we are joined by Noah Weisskopf. And we were just talking about Browns and free agency. Is there anyone you think that we'll be targeting?
Yeah, I think that they have to, right? I think that, every offseason in which Andrew Berry has been here, in Cleveland at least, he has pretty much made a big splash. I'm not going to go through and list all of them, but most recently last year, I mean, they signed Juan Thornhill to a relatively big deal. Obviously, Dalvin Tomlinson gave him a ton of money. And even Oba Okoronkwo, they gave a 3-year, I think it was $18 million deal. But I think that they have to, right? I think that to take this next step, they have to make another move to continue to fill out this roster and, take that step towards the Super Bowl run. I know that receiver-wise, at least in my opinion, one of the things I've been standing on this offseason was to make a big move at wide receiver. I know we say that almost every offseason, right? But here's the thing for me is if I know it obviously it's not going to happen now that Mike Evans was just extended, T. Higgins was tagged. But if one of those guys were to hit the open market, you can throw a bunch of money at him and push the contract back the couple of years like they did with Deshaun Watson. And by the time it starts to hit, then it's probably about time to move on from Amari Cooper anyway. So it's kind of replacing that thing. But, there are that second tier receivers that are now going to be moved up a little bit, like a Gabe Davis, a Calvin Ridley, a Marquise Brown that, are going to command some money. But, to have one of those guys as your wide receiver too is probably really beneficial. But outside of that, I know Christian Wilkins is a guy that just had come up in the news a day or two ago. I think that, honestly, the Browns are always good for a splash.
Yep.
And if he's able to hit the open market, I know that they'd have to compete a little bit. I think the Texans have a ton of cap space and a really, really promising future with a defensive head coach. So that's obviously a really attractive place for free agents to go right now. But there's obviously the connection between Christian Wilkins and Deshaun Watson. They won a national championship at Clemson together. They both started every game. They both had monster seasons. And I know that a lot of fans like to throw out the connection that Deshaun Watson and whoever else, but obviously Deshaun and Wilkins have the same agent. So I think there's a lot of connections there, and obviously it's intriguing to play and come to Cleveland now and play in that Jim Schwartz-led defense that's so dominant.
There's some smoke today. Justin Fields to the Cleveland Browns. Is there any fire there?
None. I saw a couple of things on Twitter. I mean, they're so honed in on Deshaun Watson being the QB of the future, leading them to where they want to go this upcoming season. So they're 100% in on Watson.
Another guy that was on that Clemson team too with Deshaun Watson was Mike Williams. And that's a name that we hear could become a cap casualty, if not maybe a potential trade target, kind of similar to what the Browns did with Amari Cooper, where you give up next to nothing and you get a big time talent. What are kind of your thoughts on that avenue, targeting a guy that's a little bit older, coming off of some big time injuries, kind of on a lower risk type trade or signing, I guess?
I think that's something that could become realistic. I think that, you saw with the Amari Cooper trade is Andrew Berry's not afraid to make a trade, especially for one of those guys, if it's before he becomes a cap casualty. They obviously hit with Amari Cooper, right? Giving up the 5th or 6th round pick for him, basically. So yeah, I think that they monitor every market. And if they're able to bring in one of those receivers to help continue putting weapons around Deshaun. I know Kevin Stefanski talked about that at the combine too, was like, you can never have too many weapons. And, they talk to Deshaun about everything. They talk to him for whatever the next roster move is. I mean, they want to bring him as much comfort as they can into this offense. And so bringing in any of those receivers, whether that's, the Mike Williams, the Gabe Davis, the Marquise Brown, Calvin Ridley, or even through the draft, I mean, the business is to continue getting more and more weapons on offense to keep, almost keep up with the defense, right? They played so well. You want to match that intensity on offense.
And that is good to hear that they're keeping Watson in the loop on a lot of this stuff, because that ultimately, a lot of people forget that was the shortcoming of Deshaun Watson in Houston, was that he was left in the dark on a lot of this decisions, specifically around, play calling and who was going to be his offensive coordinator. So it's good to hear, and especially after they traded DeAndre Hopkins. So it's good to hear that they have him, kind of in the loop on what's going on with this stuff for sure.
One of the changes we have to the offense this year, Ken Dorsey coming in. What are your thoughts on Ken Dorsey? What can the fans expect this year out of a Ken Dorsey-led offense over what they saw last year?
Some tablet smashes, baby.
I know, yeah. So I think that it's a really intriguing hire because he had immense success in Buffalo at times, and it obviously didn't pan out. And I had talked to a couple people after he was, he decided to agree to terms with Cleveland, and just to see sort of what went wrong. I wrote a story on it, but I think that the overwhelming theme there was the inconsistency, and Buffalo really needed consistency because they were already at that point where they can make a run at the Super Bowl. And, I think that the Browns were in a spot that they can take that chance. And I don't even know if it was necessarily a chance, but to bring him in and work with Kevin Stefanski, because it's not going to be his offense. It's going to be Kevin and Ken's offense combined. And that's something they've really preached. The two of them are working together on everything. They're going to, make the decision on play calling. They're going to both be in agreement on everything that they do. And I know especially this week is the week where Ken and Kevin are going to fly out to LA to meet up with Deshaun and just sort of catch up. I know is what they've been harping, but just to talk to him and have him be able to meet Ken. I think it's up to this point, it was only phone calls with Deshaun. So to be able to meet him and get to know him a little bit, I think that's really important. But yeah, going back, Ken in Buffalo this past season, they started pretty mediocre. And I just don't think that, Sean McDermott and the rest of that team really wanted to continue that. I think that they needed that little change. But, they would put up like 40-something points one week and struggle to move the ball the next week is something I was told. So, the inconsistency hurt him, but, he's got another shot on an offense with a lot of talent. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. The OBR's Noah Weisskopf. Thank you so much for joining us. Noah, tell everybody where they could follow along with you throughout this offseason. You know, the league year, legal tampering starts March 11th, and then the free agents are going to be signing on next week. Tell everyone where they could follow along with all your stuff.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter or X at Browns Noah, and then my work's all at 247.com or the OBR.com. So all my work is there.
Cool. Noah, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thanks, Noah.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, when we come back, we will recap what Noah talked about, and we'll also hit a little fill in the blank because that was some really good post-combine pre-NFL free agency stuff there.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil, Nick Padone, and we just had Noah Weiskopf on, and it was really great to hear from him and his thoughts on the Combine. I know we did a little Twitter situation, but what do you guys think would be your best Combine drill?
Dude, so that was a hilarious tweet that went out there this week of, you know, Big Play people. I honestly think Dave nailed it. Really,
Yeah,
I had no
it.
qualms because I saw like Cody was chiming in that he was mad that he wasn't on there, and no, I'm not mad that I wasn't on there. Like, I'm not to the caliber of athletes that we employ with, you know, you being a former athlete, Gab, in college, you know, Booby being an NBA athlete. So, like, okay, obviously you have.
What did he get, though?
I think high jump there.
Okay.
Then you would have, you know,
I was
obviously
the meme master, so I don't have to
master.
do anything at
Exactly.
all.
You have
athletic.
Ted Ginn Jr., you know, running the forward. Ted Ginn Jr. still says that he could run like a 4.4, 4.3. So, like, that's a layup. Yeah, I had no qualms with that.
I also said that I get Katie Naget, now Katie Moon. She'd be my stand-in if we have any Olympic events whatsoever. And I saw she did really well once again over the weekend. I think
At
they had
Worlds.
events. Yeah, at Worlds. So.
Yes.
We got to get Katie back in here.
She's got to come back in. I mean, I don't think people understand what's unfolding before our eyes. Not only is she a Cleveland legend, she's a legend from the female standpoint, from the athlete standpoint, from the local standpoint, and just from the world standpoint, literally at this time. She's killing the game in the pole vault, and she's been very consistent, something that's really hard to do. Be a high-caliber Olympian for that long, especially in an event that requires so much technicality, because you could injure yourself so easily. You're running at top speed. You have to have the perfect form, and not only to get over, but to not, you know, break your pole or land wrong and things like that. So
she's so graceful.
She's awesome.
She's always smiling. Like every single video you see of her, you don't see like the nasty, like if I were to get on a pole and try and do that, like just slobbering all over the place. She just looks perfect the entire time.
Yeah.
She's an unbelievable athlete.
Great person, great athlete. We will definitely have to have her on again. She deserves her roses. More people talking about her.
Listen, I'll say this. Katie, it's so hard. Now Katie Moon, honestly, Big Play Cleveland show Mount Rushmore guest for the grabbing the camera, doing Cleveland, this is for
Cleveland,
you.
this is for you.
Yeah.
After we told her to do that, and then she
Yeah.
did it, you know, after winning gold in the Olympics, I think that gets you a Mount Rushmore spot on all the guests that we've ever had in the history of this show.
100%.
And Noah, back to Noah. That dude is really good for a young up and comer in media. I love whenever we have Noah on. He is really good. He always has a lot of good insight and a lot of good kind of behind the scenes of what's going on with the Browns.
Knows his stuff.
So appreciate Noah. Okay, let's do some fill in the blank.
Oh yeah, that's my job. All right, hit the little thingy.
I don't think we have it.
Oh, we don't?
No.
Okay.
You are the little thing.
All
Go.
right. Da, 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 da. All right, the Cavs are blank without Donovan Mitchell.
They're lost without Donovan Mitchell. I mean, we were sitting here last week after they had lost 2 of 3 saying, okay, well, Donovan Mitchell was out. He was sick. So when he gets back, things are going to be different. We saw them play a New York Knicks team that was down most of their starters, lost Brunson within the first minute of that ball game, and still the Cavs had zero energy. That was amazing to me. At home, the crowd was out of it. The Cavs were out of it. Everybody was out of it from start to finish. There were barely any times during that game where I thought we even had a shot in that, let alone to win that ball game. And I don't know where the switch is, but we've got to find it, Nick, before we hit the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say the Cavs are the same exact team that they were before Donovan Mitchell without Donovan Mitchell. The Cavs without Donovan Mitchell for an entire season would be hanging around in that 6, 7, 8 seed, looking at that NBA play-in tournament. Donovan Mitchell means the world to these Cleveland Cavaliers. They need to do whatever they can to convince this guy to stay, because I think we see now in games without him how valuable he is when he's actually out there. And I know that there's way more deeper issues with what's going on with this Cavs team, but they got to get Mitchell healthy, because I do think that there's something really going on, a little bit more than just your normally regular scheduled knee kind of rest stuff with Donovan in this injury.
The frustrating part is that, Donovan Mitchell's the most talented guy on the Cleveland Cavaliers, but it doesn't take talent for effort, right?
Yep.
Effort does not take talent. And what we saw yesterday was losing a lot of 50-50 balls to the Knicks on our home court. I mean, the energy wasn't there. The team wasn't there. It was like a preseason game or something that we were watching. And here, this was the team that eliminated us from the playoffs last year at home on national TV. The Cavs have got to get that fixed.
Now, do you think the Cavs are actually soft, or they're just out of rhythm right now?
I think they're soft.
The soft. I think so too.
They are absolutely soft. Yep. They have not proven anything otherwise, especially in this matchup against the New York Knicks, where you allow Isaiah Hartenstein, who we know here, he was in Cleveland. This guy's not that good. He's not some physical specimen. He looks like Charles Oakley out there blocking shots and poster dunks. It is absolutely out of control. And I'll say this to answer that question with, are the Cavs soft? And I think that they are. Tristan Thompson has 10 games left on that suspension. And I know he's aging. I know that those were some pretty serious steroids that maybe could have helped him play as well as he did at the beginning of the season. I'll say this, if I know one thing about Tristan Thompson, it's that he is going to bring a little, he is going to bring a little bit of an attitude when he checks in. He has 6 fouls to give, kind of what we used to say with Kendrick Perkins. And I wish he was out there yesterday to put somebody on their ass, because
Mobley's not going to do it.
Mobley's not going to do it. Allen's not going to do it. They don't have that junkyard dog chain. Today after practice, they should get in the Good Time 3 boat. They should drive to the middle of Lake Erie, and they should throw it in the lake, because there is no junkyard dog on this team right now.
Drop the mic. All right, the team I want. Well, okay, speaking of playoffs and everything, the team I least want the Cavs to see in the first round of the playoffs is
anyone outside of Florida. I'll take either of the Florida teams. I know we hate seeing Orlando. I just posted on Twitter the other day, in light of LeBron setting another scoring record and being with the all-time scorer now in the NBA. I brought us back to that Orlando series where he hit that huge 3. Unfortunately, the rest of the series, Nick, didn't go so well. Hedo Turkoglu kind of lit us up.
Turned into Michael Jordan in that series, and it would be cool to see the Cavs kind of rectify, the current Cavs kind of rectify that, because I know at the time, man, like when that happened, it was like Dwight Howard and the Orlando Magic, and it was really just a cast of characters, and like you said, Hedo Turkoglu went absolutely nuts for no reason.
And that's who we would play right now.
And Booby said Hedo still gives it, like Hedo Turkoglu visits Booby Gibson in his nightmares, like from that series. So I would love to see the Cavs have a shot to rectify that. I think the Cavs could definitely outman Orlando in a 7-game series. I would like to avoid Miami. Just something about Spoelstra in the playoffs.
The fighting Jimmy Butlers.
Yeah, something to be reckoned with. And then, of course, whatever you need to do. We saw the Cavs do this in the LeBron years, where late in the year, they would strategically set who they wanted to play in the playoffs. There was one year where I think they dodged the Washington Wizards, who had Bradley Beal, John Wall. They were really hot, and they didn't want to be on that side of the bracket with the Wizards. If I'm the Cavs, right now sitting still pretty at the top of the Eastern Conference, I'm looking to do that with the Knicks. I know we talked about a round 2 matchup with the Knicks could be cool, and maybe it eventually could be. Maybe this take comes back to bite me, but the Knicks just have the Cavs number, and I think it is because they're so tough. Avoid the Knicks at all costs.
All right, shifting gears with the Browns. The free agent I want the most for the Browns to pursue is?
I really don't have a good name here, to be honest with you. You know, I'd like to see us do something in the wide receiver market, but I know that this is a very deep draft at wide receiver, so we can address it there. You know, Josh Reynolds, the wide receiver of the Lions, is one of those that has come up. He's not going to blow your doors off, but could be a nice complimentary receiver in there. You know, we saw some of the other receivers like Mike Evans coming off the market now, so really kind of slim pickings there. I would like to put more of our effort into what we can do in the draft, seeing as though it is kind of a deep wide receiver class there, Nick.
Yeah, I definitely look at this Browns team, and with everything that kind of percolated this past weekend with Christian Wilkins, and that would just be a wonderful fit, in my opinion. Obviously, the chemistry with Deshaun Watson is there on the other side of the football, which is cool for a storyline. But at the end of the day, we're talking about the Cavs not being physical. The Browns kind of got bullied defensively in that playoff game against the Houston Texans, and that goes untalked about because Joe Flacco was so bad with those 2 pick sixes. The free agent, I think I want the Browns to pursue the most, especially in a world without Mike Evans and without T. Higgins available. I'll go with Christian Wilkins. Give me a little bit more beef on that defensive line. I think they'll look at receivers. I feel like what Noah said is true now that T and Mike Evans are gone. Guys like Gabe Davis, Calvin Ridley, you know, kind of inconsistent players are going to get a pretty consistent payday just because of the demand is higher than the supply in that receiver world. So I would like to see the Browns do something defensively. Get me Christian Wilkins. That'd be cool.
Let's take one break, you guys, and we'll be back with more Fill in the Blank right after this.
Sweet.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We are continuing our Fill in the Blank here. We're going to switch gears to Ohio State. Blank should be the next head coach of Ohio State basketball.
I'd like for it to be Jake Diebler. And the way it becomes Jake Diebler is if he continues to win. If somehow miraculously this Ohio State team makes the tournament, makes any noise at all in the tournament, then I think you got to go with Jake Diebler. I've been very impressed with what he's been able to rally this team to do so far, beating Michigan yesterday, having a good run, beating Purdue. I mean, he's got the guys believing right now, and if he could continue that, then why make a change at all?
Jake Diebler has as many wins against Michigan as Ryan Day.
Ooh.
So, yeah, I'm with it.
If not, Sean Miller's another one that I know has been kicked around a little bit there at Xavier, home of Thad Matta back in the day. He followed him there and then went out to Arizona, then came back to Xavier. He would be a nice candidate to look at. But right now, I just like to ride the momentum. Maybe this Ohio State team that we had written off several times, and rightfully so, by the way, under the Holt man, has come back, has shown life under Diebler, and I'd like to see that continue. So, hey, we made a run last year in the Big Ten tournament out of nowhere. Why not do it again? Anything can happen in the tournament. Everybody's got their own motivations, and nobody should be more motivated in the Big Ten to win that tournament than Ohio State.
Man, that'd be fun.
Guys, it is Women's Month, right? Women's History Month?
Yeah.
How do we say it? March is Women's Month. Anyway.
Go ahead. Just you take the whole month. It's all you.
It's all us. All
That's
right. And we already gave Katie Moon some praise, which was well-deserved. We also have to talk about Caitlin Clark a little bit. Breaking Pistol Pete's scoring record is...
I think going to reshape the way that we think about women's sports, period. I really think, you know, especially basketball for women's athletics has really been a punching bag for a lot of people. The WNBA really is kind of a joke. I mean, it's a good product, but the way that they market it is horrible. The attendance is horrible. The viewership is nowhere close to the NBA. And then obviously we know that the contracts aren't even remotely close to the same. And in this ongoing fight for equality and equal pay for women, I really think Caitlin Clark could be a figure that we look back on in the sports world. And this is crazy to say because she's still in college, but being a figure that really starts to a paradigm shift here, because now we're going to have a bunch of little girls, and not that we didn't before, but I think now there's going to be an influx of little girls that want to become Caitlin Clark and that are going to spend the countless hours in their driveway getting shots up, you know, from way back, trying to be like Caitlin Clark and trying to go to school in their home state like she did and break records like she did. I really think it's great for women's sports. I think it's great for women's basketball. And we're talking about this tournament. the women's Final Four being right here in Cleveland, with the Ohio State women being really good and Caitlin Clark and Iowa still being really good, the women's bracket is going to be just as fun as the men's bracket. So we're already starting to see some of this happen in real time, which is really neat to see.
Well, Nick, you talk a little bit about the little girls and the young women who were inspired by Caitlin Clark. I did something yesterday that if you had told me this last year, the year before, I'd say you got to be lying here. Nice day. I'm out there playing basketball with my two boys. We have Iowa, Ohio State on the radio, and we're listening to that game because we're listening to Caitlin Clark. We want to find out whether she's going to break that record. Want to see how Ohio State's going to do. Obviously, Ohio State didn't have a whole lot on the line in that game. But for me and my teenage sons to have that on the radio while we're playing, that was kind of amazing, right?
Yeah.
And we were enthralled with the entire game, kind of her process, what was happening, some of the calls that I know a lot of Ohio State folks are talking about today. She's a superstar. She's going to get the calls. There are a lot of people who are upset by that. But nonetheless, we're talking about women's basketball. I think that's fantastic. I think it's great for the game and great for her personally. She's really been able to rise and make herself a star in women's basketball and overall.
I can't wait to see what she does in the WNBA next year. Like, I know, like that's totally like looking way too far ahead because she's going to do historic things in the tournament with Iowa this year, I really think. But man, it would be so cool to see the WNBA finally get a little bit of that shine that just feels like it's been missing for a really, really long time. And they brought so much light to that during NBA All-Star Weekend this year with Sabrina and the shootout with Steph. Honestly, man, next year, my dream, just expand that even further. It would be the coolest night to have Caitlin Clark, Sabrina, Steph. Let Steph pick, a male counterpart since Sabrina and Caitlin would have each other. I don't know how they were going to do it, but it would be so cool to just keep bringing eyeballs onto the women's game of basketball. It's really cool.
I think you're right, Nick. I think she's helping us get over the hump of getting it widespread interest garnered. Kobe Bryant was always really, I think he was the Kickstarter to getting people interested in women's basketball. Not that they weren't before, but like you pointed out, it just wasn't as big. It wasn't as enough people interested in it. And Caitlin Clark, especially seizing the opportunity in the days of our social media, is really able to do that. Because when I was growing up, I had posters of like Sue Bird and, Lisa Leslie was already the GOAT by that point. But Diana Taurasi, I remember. Like, imagine if they were, in their peak day and it was like all social media and things like that. I think it'd be even bigger. So now Caitlin Clark is taking advantage of this new wave and these young people and Gen Z and social media and the clips and the viralness of it. And she's really creating this buzz single-handedly. So I'm pumped. Everyone's trying to say, oh, she's not going to play well in the WNBA. Just wait. First of all, let's just watch her cook for the rest of this year, and then watch out, haters. She's really going to show up in the WNBA.
And for the men out there that are going to flood these Twitter comments and YouTube comments and stuff saying that I'm not watching women's basketball, I'm not watching the women's side of the bracket, you guys are just talking about this for no reason. Honestly, I would implore you guys to give it a shot. I get that it's not for everybody. It's definitely not the same style of NBA that you're accustomed to in the NBA. All right, we can leave that there. There are no dunks. These chicks aren't dunking. Hate to leave it there, but it's a completely pure brand of basketball where there's way more passing. It's a much more team-oriented game on the female side, and there's a lot more threes, which honestly in today's day and age, that's really what the game of basketball is all about. So tune into the ladies. Don't drop these mean comments for no reason because, just people will be in trouble.
Plus, you can bet on it.
And you can bet on it.
Hey, there you go.
There you go.
And that is a perfect segue. We will step aside when we return. We will lock in our big play, big bets this week, all presented to you guys by Tipico Sportsbook. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back into the Big Play Cleveland show right here on the Big Play Network. I'm Nick Padone. She's Gabriella Cruz. Chris McNeil in studio with us as always. Also, it is time for our Big Play bets this week. all brought to you by our friends at Tipico Sportsbook. And Tipico is changing the way you bet with their new Tipico Rewards program, where the more you bet, the more you earn. You got to download the Tipico app to hear what we're talking about. This is the first sportsbook in Ohio that's giving you actual cash back. When you're placing these bets, you're getting actual cash, not bonus bets, none of that crap. You're getting actual cash that you can withdraw from your Tipico account, put it right into your wallet. Be sure to sign up with our show link that's in all of our social media bios, or just use that promo code Cleveland100, all caps, all one word, Cleveland100. You're going to get $100 of bets on us when you place that first $25 bet. You got to be 21 years or older to gamble in Ohio. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Guys, we were talking about the Cavs a little bit off air, and I don't think this will make the clip, with George Niang. And he just mentioned the schedule makers kind of did them no favors. When you look at the upcoming games for the Cavs, against the Celtics on Tuesday, the Hawks Wednesday, Timberwolves, who are one of the hottest, best teams in the Western Conference on Friday, the Nets Sunday, Suns a week from now on Monday. Hoo-wee, what does a successful week look like for you, Chris, for the Cavs over these next 5 games?
Well, you got 3 of the first 4 there. We're at home, right? You got the Celtics. Based upon what we just did with the Knicks, there is no reason we would be in this game against the Celtics if they show that kind of effort. But that also leads me to believe in the NBA with the way, the teams can kind of turn on a dime. I would expect us to kind of rally around the fact that everybody's dogging us after that performance against the Knicks and really show up, because that performance against the Knicks is going to really turn some heads, I think, in the NBA. There were a lot of people who were really high on the Cavs and now saying, boy, I don't know what kind of a team it is. And I think that's just the kind of inspiration. If the Cavs are ever going to be inspired, it's going to be right now. And hopefully they could turn it around. Once again, the game's at home. You're playing Boston. George Niang, he was in here. He was all excited about that game. Said, not so much about the Hawks. We won't worry about them. But was geared up for that Boston game. Hopefully the whole team's geared up to play Boston.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important week for the Cavs. As we know, you start getting through this month of March and you start looking at things like what a playoff rotation could look like. I don't know that the Cavs are there quite yet. Honestly, you got to try to get a lot of your guys healthy. You got to get Donovan Mitchell back on the floor at some point.
We need to figure out what we're doing with our rotation. How are we working in Sam Merrill right now? Everybody's calling for him. He's getting DNPs in games, and you're going, why? Every time he steps on the floor, he's magic from 3 land.
That is unacceptable. Like, whatever happens when Karras and Donovan get healthy, Sam Merrill needs to be in that rotation, even if that means you have to go 9. Man. And when Tristan gets back from his suspension within the next 10 games too, who's to say you don't throw him in there in a game like New York? Not every night, but just to mix it up for 3 or 4 minutes. I really think the game of basketball in the NBA is oftentimes a chess match in that sort of thing. And Sam Merrill not seeing the floor is just unacceptable at this point. Okay, let's keep this thing going as Guardian Spring Training. The bets will be going every single day of the week. Games against the Mariners Tuesday, Brewers Wednesday, A's Thursday, White Sox Friday, Angels Saturday, Reds Sunday. Chris, a lot of our young players here starting to look good, and betting on the Guardians in the spring training is going to be all right if Chase DeLauter and some of these guys keep hitting home runs.
Did you see that dinger by DeLauter?
Did you hear it?
Yes.
It sounded like a nuke went off of his bat.
Absolutely. He crushed that. There was no doubt about it. I don't know. These spring training games, you don't exactly have the crowd that's very loud, but man, you could hear that bat. It sounded like it was an aluminum bat when that thing came off.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, and then you have Angel Martinez as well, currently leading the Guardians in batting average at the time that we record this, hitting .571 with 2 home runs, 5 RBI.
I never like to make heroes out of spring training, but you know what I mean? Like you start to see some things, and then the season rolls along. But it is still exciting. And
especially too, Gab, like I feel like we're doing a good job. We're not making heroes out of these guys, but I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about guys like Chase, Angel, young players who we know are blue chip, really highly sought after, really highly thought of prospects. I think there's nothing wrong with getting a little bit excited.
Yes.
I definitely am.
I definitely am.
Potential. Because coming into the season here, we're looking for them to generate a lot of the offense, and we're relying on our good pitching and are starting pitching to really be the rock bed for this team. And you see Shane Bieber going out there just throwing gas. So
Yes.
How about
that
that?
makes you feel good.
How
right?
about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
And when you peek at those AL Cy Young odds too,
Yeah.
I know we went a little bit deeper and we were looking for some of the value in Tristan McKenzie and
Yeah.
Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, but man, don't forget about O'Reliable.
Yeah.
You know, like, and he is back, and that
Adds
fastball
a
is
couple
humming.
a couple of miles per hour onto that fastball. He could be
Ooh-wee.
dangerous this year.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I'll say it.
Yeah.
I
What'd
didn't
you
think
see?
he was going to
I
do
saw
that.
it was like a tweet about 94 miles an hour.
Yeah, and he was like at 91 top last year.
Yeah.
So he's figuring some things
I like
out.
it.
I like it a lot. All right, let's take a look at Ohio State Buckeyes basketball. Talked a lot about them, hopefully making some noise in the Big Ten tournament. But the regular season finale is on Sunday at Rutgers. Chris, the Buckeyes are 1-8 on the road this year. Obviously, that one win coming now with their new interim coach, Jake Diebler.
Got the monkey off our back with Diebler. Yeah, now you got to go to Rutgers, go out to New Jersey and play some basketball there. Right now, I would not put my money against the Buckeyes, at least for the short term. I think they got a good shot against Rutgers, and I'd like to see them make a run in this tournament, as we talked about before, the Big Ten tournament here. And if Diebler can keep this thing pointed in the right direction, I think it could be fun for a few weeks. We'll see what happens. I still don't think they're going to make the big tournament, but you never know. Let's get on this ride. Let's ride it for a couple of weeks. Let's see what Diebler and the boys can get going.
That'd be really fun. Also, too, this week, check out on Tipico Sportsbook the Horizon League tournament. Shout out to our guys at Cleveland State. Not a top seed going into this, but check out Youngstown State. Show Ohio a little bit of love. They're the 2 seed heading into this thing. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Nick Padone. She's Gab Cruz, Chris McNeil. Make sure you guys download that Tipico Sportsbook app. Use promo code Cleveland100. Bet with us all week long, and we will see you guys next week.